Settle in now. Let the day loosen its hold. Let the world outside grow softer. Tonight we travel back into Old Ireland, to a time of green woods, quiet rivers, and stories carried gently from one fire to another. We travel to a river that moved through the heart of the land, beneath branches of hazel and ash, past moss-covered stones, and through places where the air seemed older than memory. This is the story of the Salmon of Knowledge. It is a story of patience, a story of listening. It is a story of a young boy named Fionn who did not yet know the greatness waiting quietly inside him. Long ago, people in Ireland believed that wisdom did not always come from books, or from kings, or from loud voices in crowded halls. Sometimes wisdom lived in silence. Sometimes it lived in water. Sometimes it rested inside a creature that moved unseen beneath the surface of a sacred pool. There was in those days a river called the Boyne. It flowed clear and deep through the green country, passing under low branches and beside old places where people walked softly. In the morning, mist gathered above it like a white veil. In the evening, the last light of the sun lay across its surface like gold thread. Along its banks grew hazel trees. Their leaves trembled gently in the wind. Their roots held the earth. Their branches bent toward the water, as though listening to something below. And in the old way of telling, there were 9 hazel trees that grew around a secret pool. These trees were not ordinary trees. They were trees of wisdom, and their nuts carried the knowledge of the world. When the hazelnuts ripened, they fell from the branches into the quiet water. One by one, they dropped into the pool. A small sound, a soft circle of ripples. Then silence again. But beneath the surface, a salmon waited. The salmon was older than other fish. It moved through the water with a calm silver strength. Its scales caught the light like little pieces of moon. Its eyes were dark and knowing. The salmon ate the hazelnuts as they fell, and with every nut it swallowed, it grew wiser. It learned the secrets of the deep water. It learned the turning of the seasons. It learned the speech of birds, the memory of stones, and the long thoughts of the trees. It knew where rivers began. It knew where stars went when morning came. It knew why the wind changed before rain. It knew the names of things that had been forgotten by people, and so it became known as the Salmon of Knowledge. It was said that whoever tasted this salmon would receive all its wisdom. But wisdom is not easily caught. It does not come just because someone wants it. It does not hurry toward the impatient hand. It waits. It moves in shadow. It rises only when the time is right. Many had heard of the salmon. Many had searched. But only one man had given his life to finding it. His name was Finegas. He was a poet. And in old Ireland, A poet was more than someone who made beautiful words. A poet was a keeper of memory, a listener to the hidden life of the world. A poet learned the stories of kings and heroes, the laws of honor, the names of places, the old songs, the meanings beneath meanings. Finegas had studied for many years. He had listened to teachers. He had learned from the land. He had watched the river in every season. He had waited through long days of summer, through cold mornings of frost, through rain that fell steadily from grey skies, through evenings when the river turned copper beneath the setting sun. He waited beside the Boyne because he believed the Salmon of Knowledge would one day come to him. And because Fionn was patient, he did not rage at the waiting. He simply returned each morning to the riverbank. He listened to the water. He watched the current. He tended his little fire. And he waited. Finegas lived simply beside the river. His hut was small, built near the trees with a roof of thatch and a doorway facing the water. Smoke rose from it in a thin blue line when the mornings were cold. Beside the hut were bundles of dry wood, a few clay pots, and a place where he sat to mend his nets. He had no need for grandeur. The river was his companion. The hazel trees were his shelter. The sounds of the day were enough. In spring, he listened to birds returning to the branches. In summer, he watched sunlight scatter over the water. In autumn, he heard hazelnuts fall with small, soft sounds into the pool. In winter, he saw the river darken beneath pale skies, still moving, still speaking, still keeping its secret. Finegas was old, though not weak. His beard was white. His face was lined by weather and thought. His hands were careful hands, used to writing, fishing, gathering wood, and turning pages of memory in his mind. He knew many stories. He knew the names of heroes long gone. He knew where battles had been fought and where lovers had parted. He knew the songs that mothers sang to children, the verses that honored kings, and the quiet sayings that held more truth than they seemed to hold. But there was one thing he did not know. He did not know the full wisdom of the salmon, and so he waited. Each morning he walked down to the river before the sun had fully risen. The grass was wet around his feet. Mist lay low over the water. The hazel branches stood still above him. Finegas would cast his line into the pool and sit with the patience of stone. Sometimes the river gave him small fish. Sometimes it gave him nothing at all. Sometimes a flash of silver moved deep below, and his heart stirred. But the Salmon of Knowledge did not come. Years passed like this. Yet Fionn did not leave. Some people would have grown bitter. Some would have said the story was false. Some would have gone searching elsewhere, always believing wisdom must be just beyond the next hill. But Fionn understood something. The place that teaches you is often the place where you must remain. So he stayed beside the Boyne, and while he waited for wisdom, he became wise in other ways. He learned how dawn changed the color of water before rain. He learned the difference between silence and stillness. He learned that the river was never the same river twice, though it kept the same name. He learned that waiting could be a kind of listening, and this, perhaps, was why the salmon came at last. One morning, the world was very quiet. The sky was pale. The river moved slowly beneath a silver mist. Finegas sat beside the pool with his line in the water. He was not thinking of glory. He was not thinking of the stories that might be told of him. He was only watching the current move around a stone. Then the line stirred. Only a little. Finegas sat up. The line pulled again. This time, stronger. The river shivered. A flash of silver turned beneath the surface. Finegas felt his breath catch. He held the line carefully, neither pulling too hard nor letting it go slack. The fish below moved with deep, ancient strength. It turned once, then twice, sending ripples across the pool. The hazel branches trembled overhead. Finegas waited. The salmon struggled, but not wildly. It moved as though it understood the moment had come. At last, with one smooth pull, Fingo brought it from the water. The salmon lay shining on the riverbank. Its scales glimmered silver, blue, and rose like dawn reflected in rain. Its body was strong and beautiful. Its dark eye seemed to hold the river, the trees, the sky, and something older than all of them. Finegas looked down at it in wonder. After all his years of waiting, the Salmon of Knowledge had come to him. He bowed his head. He did not shout. He did not leap for joy. He only whispered thanks to the river, to the hazel trees, and to the old mystery that had finally risen from the pool. Then he lifted the salmon gently and carried it back to his hut. On that same day, another part of the story was quietly making its way toward the river. A young boy was coming to Fingo. His name was Fionn, though in his childhood he had also been known by another name, Damne. He was the son of Cumhaill, who had once been the leader of the Fianna, the great band of hunters, warriors, and protectors of old Ireland. But Fionn had not grown up in ease. His father had died when he was very young, and danger had followed the boy from the beginning. To keep him safe, he had been hidden away and raised in the wild places. He had learned from strong and wise women who taught him how to move through the forest, how to run across rough ground, how to swim in cold rivers, how to listen for danger, and how to live close to the land. Fun grew with the woods around him. He learned the paths deer used at dusk. He learned where birds nested. He learned how rain smelled before it arrived. He learned to be quick, quiet, and watchful. But he was not only trained in strength. He was also trained in memory and poetry. For a true hero in the old stories was not only strong of arm, he had to be deep of mind. He had to know the power of words, the weight of promises, the meaning of honor, and the old stories that shaped the world. So Fionn was sent to Fingor, the poet by the Boyne. There, beside the river, he would learn poetry, wisdom, and the hidden music of language. When Fionn arrived, he was still young, but there was something bright in him. He was not loud. He was not boastful. He had clear eyes and a calm way of watching. He moved like someone who had spent much of his life outdoors, where every sound might matter. Finegas saw this. He saw the boy's strength. He saw his patience. He saw perhaps a little of what was waiting inside him. And so Finegas welcomed him. The old poet gave him a place by the fire. He gave him simple food. He showed him where to fetch water, where to gather wood, and where to sit when lessons began. Fionn learned quickly. He listened to verses and repeated them back. He learned the names of places and the stories behind them. He learned that a poem could remember what people forgot. He learned that words could wound, heal, praise, warn, bless, and bind. Finegas was pleased with him. The boy did not interrupt. He did not pretend to know what he did not know. He asked questions when questions were needed, and when silence was better, he allowed silence to remain. In the evenings they sat by the fire while the river moved outside in the dark. Finegas would speak of heroes and kings, of old battles and strange births, of the other world and its music, of animals who carried hidden meanings, and places where the boundary between worlds grew thin. Fionn listened. The fire lit his face. The rain tapped softly on the roof. Outside, the Boyne went on flowing, and all the while, beneath the surface of the story, fate was moving closer. When Finegas brought the salmon into the hut, Fionn knew at once that something had changed. The old poet's face was quiet, but filled with wonder. He laid the salmon carefully on a clean stone near the hearth. For a long moment, neither teacher nor pupil spoke. The fire moved softly. The river sounded beyond the doorway. Then Finegas said, "This is the fish I have waited for." Fionn looked at the salmon. Its silver body caught the firelight. Its scales seemed almost to glow. Though it no longer moved, it did not seem like an ordinary creature. It seemed like something that had belonged to the deep places of the world. "The Salmon of Knowledge?" Fionn asked. Finegas nodded. "The very one." The words settled into the room. Fionn had heard of the salmon. Everyone who knew the old tales had heard of it. The fish that had eaten the hazelnuts of wisdom. The fish that carried the knowledge of the world. The fish that would give its wisdom to the first person who tasted it. Finegas looked at the boy carefully. "I have waited 7 years for this fish," he said. "Some say longer. I have watched the river through heat and frost. I have listened beneath the hazel trees. I have given my life to this waiting." Fionn lowered his head. "It has come to you then?" "Yes," Finegas said. "And now it must be cooked." He gave the fish to Fionn. "Roast it carefully," he said. "Turn it over the fire. Watch it closely. Do not let it burn." Then his voice became more serious. "And Fionn." "Yes?" "You must not taste it." The boy looked up. Finegas held his gaze. "The wisdom belongs to the one who first tastes the salmon. I have waited many years for this day. You may cook it, but you must not eat even the smallest piece." Fionn nodded. "I understand." And he did. There was no anger in him, no envy. Finegas had earned this moment through long patience. Fionn respected that. So the boy prepared the fish as he had been told. He cleaned it carefully. He set it over the fire. He watched the flames. The hut filled with the warm scent of roasting fish. Outside, evening began to gather. The light beyond the door turned gold, then grey. The hazel trees swayed softly beside the river. Inside, Fionn sat by the hearth and turned the salmon. He was careful. He watched the skin darken. He watched the fat hiss and fall into the fire. He watched little sparks rise and vanish. The salmon cooked slowly. Finegas had gone outside for a little while, perhaps to gather himself, perhaps to thank the river again, perhaps because a moment waited for many years can be almost too large to sit beside. Fionn remained by the fire. He thought of the salmon's long life beneath the water. He thought of the hazelnuts falling from the sacred trees. He thought of knowledge moving silently through the world, entering root, leaf, river, fish, and flame. Then a small blister rose on the salmon's skin. It swelled in the heat. Fionn leaned closer. A drop of hot juice spat from the fish and landed on his thumb. It burned. Without thinking, Fionn put his thumb into his mouth. Only for a moment. Only to ease the pain. But in that moment, the world changed. The taste was small. A touch of salt. A touch of smoke, a touch of the river, but beneath it came something vast and quiet. Fionn froze beside the fire. His thumb still rested against his tongue. The hut seemed to grow larger around him. The sound of the river outside became clearer, as though every drop of water had found a voice. The crackle of the fire became a pattern. The wind in the hazel leaves became a language. The earth beneath him seemed alive with memory. He saw the river in darkness and in dawn. He saw hazelnuts falling through mist. He saw the salmon moving through green water, eating the nuts of wisdom one by one. He saw roots under soil and stars over mountains. He saw deer crossing a ridge at sunrise. He saw storms forming far out at sea. He saw paths through woods he had never walked. He saw faces he had never met, and places whose names he somehow knew. It did not come like noise. It came like a deep knowing, as if a door had opened inside him, and beyond it was not confusion, but stillness. Fionn took his thumb from his mouth. He breathed slowly. The firelight moved across the walls. The salmon continued to roast. A few moments later, Finegas returned. He stepped into the hut and stopped. Something in the boy's face had changed. Finegas saw it at once. The old poet was silent for a long time. Then he asked very softly, "Did you taste the salmon?" Fionn turned toward him. "No," he said, then paused. "Not willingly. A drop burned my thumb. I put it to my mouth before I thought." Finegas looked at him. "Show me your thumb." Fionn held out his hand. The thumb was reddened where the hot juice had struck it. Finegas closed his eyes. For a moment, disappointment passed over him. It was only natural. He had waited so long. He had believed the wisdom would come to him. But Finegas was a true poet, and a true poet must know when a story has chosen its own path. He opened his eyes again and looked at Fionn, not with anger, but with understanding. "It was never meant for me," he said. Fionn lowered his head. "I am sorry." Finegas shook his head gently. "No, do not be sorry for what the world itself has done." The old man sat beside the fire. The hut was quiet, except for the sound of the salmon cooking and the river beyond the trees. "At times," Finegas said, "a person may wait for a gift, and the waiting itself is the gift given to them. I thought the salmon would give me knowledge. Perhaps it has, but not in the way I expected." Fionn did not know what to say. Finegas looked at him with tired kindness. "Eat the salmon now." Fionn looked up. "But you told me not to, and now I tell you to eat. The first taste has already passed to you. The wisdom has chosen where to go." The boy hesitated. "Will you not have some?" Finegas smiled faintly. "I will share the meal, but the gift is yours." And so, beside the fire, teacher and pupil ate the salmon of knowledge. Fionn ate slowly, not greedily, not as someone trying to take power. He ate with the humility of one who understands that a great gift is also a great responsibility. The old poet watched him, and perhaps in his heart, Finegas felt the first soft easing of a desire he had carried for many years. The river moved in the dark. The hazel trees whispered above it. And inside the small hut by the Boyne, the life of Fionn began to turn toward legend. From that day on, Fionn was changed. He did not become loud. He did not become proud. True wisdom rarely enters the world with shouting. It settled inside him quietly, like light filling a room before sunrise. When he placed his thumb beneath his tooth, the knowledge came to him, not always as a voice, not always as a vision. Sometimes it came as a feeling, a certainty, a path opening where there had seemed to be no path. He could understand the signs of the forest more deeply than before. He knew when danger was near. He knew what words to speak and when to remain silent. He knew the nature of people, not perfectly, but more clearly. He could hear the world beneath the world. The cry of a bird was no longer only a cry. The turn of wind was no longer only weather. The shape of clouds, the movement of animals, the stillness before an event, the silence after a word had been spoken. All these things carried meaning. Finegas continued to teach him, but now the teaching was different. Before, Fionn had poured knowledge into the boy like water into a cup. Now he helped Fionn understand the river that had opened inside him. Wisdom is not the same as knowing many things, Fionn told him. They were sitting one evening beside the Boyne. The sun was low and the water was bright with amber light. "What is it then?" Fionn asked. Finegas looked out across the river. "Wisdom is knowing how to hold what you know." Fionn listened. "A foolish person may learn a secret and use it to wound. A proud person may learn a truth and use it to stand above others. A frightened person may know the right path and still refuse to walk it." The old poet turned to him. "But a wise person learns to listen, to wait, to see clearly, to act when action is needed, to be gentle when gentleness is stronger than force." The river moved around a stone, dividing, then joining itself again. Fionn watched it. He thought of the salmon. He thought of Finger waiting all those years. He thought of the burn on his thumb. He thought of how easily a life can change in one small moment. "Will I always know what to do?" he asked. Finegas smiled. "No. Wisdom does not remove difficulty. It helps you meet difficulty without becoming lost inside it." This was not the answer Fionn expected, but it was an answer he remembered. The days continued beside the Boyne. Fionn learned poems. He learned histories. He learned the deep rules of honor. He learned how stories carry truth from one generation to another. And when the time came for him to leave Finegas, he did so with gratitude. The morning of his departure was calm. Mist lay over the river. The hazel trees stood still. Finegas walked with him to the edge of the water. For a little while, they said nothing. Then Finger placed a hand on Fionn's shoulder. "You have been given much," he said. "I know. Then give much." Fionn nodded. "I will try." Finegas looked at him carefully. "Do more than try when the hour calls for it. But for now, go gently." Fionn bowed his head. The old poet blessed him, and the boy who had come to the river as a student left it, carrying the first quiet shape of his destiny. Fionn walked away from the Boyne through a morning washed clean by mist. The world seemed both familiar and new. The grass was wet beneath his feet. Birds moved in the hedges, A hare crossed the path ahead of him and vanished into fern. Far off, smoke rose from some unseen dwelling, thin and blue in the pale air. He carried little with him: a cloak, a staff, the lessons of Finger, and the wisdom of the salmon hidden deep inside him. He was still young. The great stories of his life had not yet unfolded. He had not yet become the leader remembered in fireside tales. He had not yet gathered the Fianna around him. He had not yet seen all the strange, beautiful, sorrowful things that would one day belong to his name. For now, he was a young man walking through Ireland. The road led him over hills and through woodland. He crossed streams where the water ran cold over stones. He passed through valleys where cattle grazed in quiet fields. At night he slept beneath trees or in the shelter of kind households, where people shared bread, milk, and stories by the fire. Sometimes he spoke little, sometimes he listened. He heard news of the land. He heard of chieftains, quarrels, feasts, hunts, and old wrongs not yet healed. He heard the name of the Fianna spoken with respect, fear, longing, and memory. His father's people, his inheritance, his future. Yet Fionn did not rush toward it. He had learned from the river. He knew that some things are reached by walking steadily, not by running. In the evenings, when the sky lowered and the first stars appeared, he sometimes placed his thumb beneath his tooth and listened inwardly. The knowledge came gently. It did not tell him everything. It did not make the road easy, but it helped him sense the shape of what lay ahead. A meeting, a test, a fire, a hall, a doorway opening. One evening, after many days of travel, Fionn came near the place where the High King's Hall stood at Tara. Tara was not merely a place of stone and timber. It was the heart of kingship in Ireland, a place of ceremony, judgment, feasting, and memory. The hills around it seemed to hold old footsteps. The wind there carried the voices of many generations. Fionn stood at a distance as the sun set behind the land. Fires were being lit. People moved in and out of the great hall. Horses stamped softly. Dogs barked once, then quieted. The smell of smoke and roasted meat drifted on the air. Fionn felt the knowledge within him stir. The path had brought him here, and though he did not yet know all that would happen, he understood this much. The time for hiding was coming to an end. There was trouble at Tara in those days. Each year when the great gathering came and the people were drawn together in the High King's Hall, a strange danger returned. A being of the other world came in the night. His name was Island. He was no ordinary enemy. He came with music, and his music was dangerous because it was beautiful. He would play a soft, enchanted tune that caused all who heard it to fall into deep sleep. Warriors, guards, servants, kings, poets. everyone would sink into dreams. Then, while they slept, Eilean would breathe fire upon the hall. Year after year, Tara had suffered this burning. Year after year, no one had stopped him. The strongest warriors could not fight what they could not stay awake to face. When Fionn entered the hall, he found it filled with concern. The firelight glowed on shields and faces. Men spoke in low voices. The High King sat with a heavy expression, for the night of danger had come again. Fionn listened. He did not push forward. He did not boast. But when the call was made for someone to guard Tara, he stepped into the light. "I will keep watch," he said. Some turned to look at him. He was young. Too young, perhaps, to make such a promise. But there was a steadiness in him that made the hall grow quiet. The High King studied him. "Many have tried," the king said. "I know," said Fionn, "and many have failed. I know that too. What is your name?" "I am Fionn, son of Cumhaill." At that name, murmurs moved through the hall. Fionn, son of Cumhaill, the lost child, the son of the former leader of the Fianna, the boy who had been hidden. The young man now standing before them with calm eyes and a quiet voice. The High King leaned forward. "And how will you stay awake when enchanted music fills the air?" Fionn did not answer quickly. He thought of Finger. He thought of the river. He thought of the salmon and the burn on his thumb. "I will listen," he said. Some in the hall did not understand, but the High King allowed him to try. That night, Fionn took his place outside Tara. The air was cold. The stars shone above the dark hill. Inside the hall, the people waited, though fear made the waiting heavy. Fionn stood alone beneath the sky. He felt the night around him. He heard the grass moving. He heard the small sounds of horses in the distance. He heard the fire inside the hall settling lower. Then, far away, music began. It was soft at first, beautiful, a tune so gentle it seemed to carry rest inside it. It moved over the hill like silver mist. Fionn felt his eyelids grow heavy. The music promised comfort. It promised sleep. It promised that he could lay down his burden and drift. But Fionn knew this was not true rest. It was enchantment. He pressed the point of his spear against his forehead to keep himself awake. In some tellings, he used the heat or sharpness of a weapon. In others, the wisdom within him guided him through the spell. Tonight, let us say he did both. He used courage. He used pain. He used knowledge. He used the still, deep listening that had begun beside the Boyne. The music grew sweeter. The world blurred at the edges. Fionn placed his thumb beneath his tooth. The wisdom came. He understood the direction of the sound. He understood the path of the danger. He understood the moment to move. Through the darkness came Eilen, shining with otherworldly fire, his music drifting before him. Fionn stepped forward. The spell pressed against him like a heavy cloak. But he did not sleep. Eilen drew near the hall and lifted his head to breathe flame. Fionn struck. The old stories tell the moment with more force and brightness than we need tonight. For this is a sleep story, and we need not linger on battle. It is enough to say that Fionn met the danger with courage. The fire did not take Tara. The hall was saved. And when dawn came, the people woke to find the young son of Cumhaill standing beneath the pale morning sky, alive, weary, and changed in the eyes of Ireland. The High King came before him. The warriors gathered. The poets remembered. The name of Fionn rose through the hall like the first light of day. And from that time, the road opened before him. After the saving of Tara, Fionn was no longer only a hidden child or a student of poets or a young traveller on the road. He began to become the person the stories had been waiting for. The Fianna who had once followed his father came to know him. Some tested him. Some doubted him. Some watched in silence. But over time, they saw what Fingor had seen beside the river. They saw courage without empty pride. They saw strength guided by thought. They saw a young man who could listen to the wind before a storm, to the quiet before danger, and to the hearts of people who spoke less than they felt. Fionn became their leader, not in a single breath. Not because the world suddenly made way for him, but because, step by step, choice by choice, he proved worthy of trust. He hunted with them across the green hills. He sat with them beside fires under wide skies. He listened to their stories. He learned their griefs. He led them through forests, across rivers, and into all the strange brightness of the old tales. In time, many stories would gather around him. Stories of giants and enchanted deer. Stories of loyalty and love. Stories of hounds, warriors, poets, and the thin places where the mortal world touched the other world. But always, somewhere beneath those stories, there was the river, the Boyne, the hazel trees, the patient poet, the silver salmon, the burned thumb, the first taste of wisdom. When Fionn faced a hard choice, he remembered. When words failed others, he listened more deeply. When danger came in a form no sword could easily answer, he did not rush blindly. He turned inward. He placed his thumb beneath his tooth, and the knowledge came. Yet the greatest part of the gift was not that he knew many things. It was that he had learned humility before knowing them. He had not stolen the salmon. He had not grabbed at wisdom. He had received it by accident, perhaps, or by fate, or by a design older than either boy or poet could see. And because it had come to him that way, he carried it carefully. This is one of the quiet teachings of the story. Wisdom may arrive in a sudden moment, but the heart must be prepared to hold it. A river may offer a gift. A fish may rise. A single drop may burn the skin. A boy may put his thumb to his mouth without thinking. And still, behind that small moment, there may be years of listening, years of patience, years of hidden preparation. So it was with Fionn. The child hidden in the forest became the student. The student became the watcher. The watcher became the guardian. The guardian became the leader. And the leader became a legend. Now let the story grow quieter. Let Tara fade into morning mist. Let the voices of the hall soften. Let the footsteps of the Fianna move away over the hills. We return for a little while to the river. The Boyne still flows beneath the hazel trees. The pool is calm again. Mist gathers in the hollow before dawn. A heron stands in the shallows, still as a thought. The hazel branches lean over the water, and when autumn comes, their nuts fall softly into the pool, one by one. A small sound, a circle of ripples, then silence. Finegas still sits near his hut in memory. The old poet looks out over the water. He did not receive the gift he expected, but perhaps he received another. He saw wisdom pass into the one who would need it most. He saw that waiting is never wasted when it teaches the soul how to listen. He saw that not every treasure is meant to be kept by the one who finds it. Some gifts pass through our hands on their way to the world. And Fionn, far beyond the river now, carries the salmon's knowledge into all the bright and difficult days of his life. He carries the river with him. He carries the hazel trees. He carries the quiet fire in the hut. He carries the old poet's lessons. And somewhere inside him, always, the salmon of knowledge moves through clear water, silver, silent, wise. The night deepens. The river goes on. It passes stones and reeds. It passes banks of soft grass. It passes roots hidden in the dark earth. Above it, the stars open one by one. They shine on the water. They shine on the trees. They shine on the old roads of Ireland, where stories travel from mouth to mouth, from fire to fire, from one sleeping heart to another. There is nothing more to hurry toward now. The salmon has risen. The gift has been given. The boy has taken the road before him, and the river keeps flowing, softly, slowly, as it always has. Now imagine the river at night. The air is cool. The grass is damp. The hazel trees stand quietly along the bank, their leaves moving gently in the dark. There is no need to speak, no need to search, no need to know everything. The water holds its own wisdom. It moves past stone and wood. It gathers moonlight. It carries the reflections of stars. A salmon turns beneath the surface, only a shadow at first, then a flash of silver, then nothing again. The river keeps its secrets kindly. Finegas rests by his little fire. Fionn walks somewhere beyond the hills, young and strong beneath the wide Irish sky. The Fianna sleep beside their horses. The High King's Hall is safe in the quiet dark. And all across the land, old Ireland breathes. In the woods, a deer lowers its head. On the riverbank, reeds bend in the breeze. Above the pool, a hazelnut loosens from its branch. It falls softly into the water. A ripple widens, then another, and slowly the river becomes still again. You do not need to follow the story any farther tonight. You can leave it here, beside the Boyne, beneath the hazel trees, with the moon in the water, the fire low in the hut, and the silver salmon moving quietly through the dream of the river. The world is wide. The night is gentle. The old stories are patient, and wisdom, when it comes, does not need to shout. It may come like water, like mist, like a small flame, like a single taste, like a river moving softly through the dark. So rest now. Let the river carry the last thoughts of the day away. Let the hazel leaves whisper above you. Let the stars shine quietly on the water. And let the story become only rhythm, only breath, only the soft turning of an old Irish night.